Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Get ready for Talking Heads, the show where expert insights meet world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. Brought to you by USA Global TV and Radio. Meet our distinguished presenters. From the great state of Texas, longevity expert, award-winning author, publisher, and distinguished Toastmaster, red.olaughlin. From London, England, soul heart awakener, novelist, vocal coach, and artist, Dr. Madeline Chan. Also from England, the Harley Street stress expert, therapist, ambassador for peace, and speaker, Carolyn Heward. And from Australia, ICF PCC credentialed coach, entrepreneur, and leadership coach, Mariska Dupria. Experience their expertise, connect with their wisdom, and transform your perspective. Watch Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. This video and its contents are the property of USA Global TV and Radio. All rights reserved. Terms and conditions apply. Visit usaglobaltv.com for more details.
Howdy, red.olaughlin here. We're on Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And we're in an area that is very near and dear to my heart. I love this show every week. You get a chance to talk about things that really excite me, that I spend a lot of time perusing, researching, looking for. And my wife says, here's something, you know about this? No, please send it to me. And I get her input. So I get a lot of information from people. And sometimes they say, what do you know about this? Well, I don't. And if it's just a single ask and I don't have an interest in it, it just probably dies a natural death. But I get 2 or 3 people over a short period of time asking about it. Then I think, maybe I ought to provide some information. Well, today I was kind of searching through things. Let me go ahead and load up the slides as we're talking here. And I'm thinking about what's kind of important. We talk about illness, we talk about disease, we talk about cancer, we talk about pain, we talk about a lot of different things. But one of the things that I do often is I stand on a scale to weigh myself. Well, if I happen to have my phone with me and I'm in barefoot, then the issue becomes I can get metrics off of my scale, a smart scale, to go straight to my phone that are archived on my phone, that if I'm seeing something, I can take it to my doctor and say, hey doc, what do you think about this? And it'll show a trend. And that's what I think is kind of important, is that now I have something that not only is important to me, but also becomes an issue. Okay, there, took care of that one. That was easy. Okay, but we're talking today about what should we pay attention to when we're healthy. And we hear the term health and wellness. I'll talk a little bit about those 2 terms here in just a moment, but there are things that I measure, there's more than a dozen that I measure off of my scale. And why would somebody pass up that opportunity? I'm looking for something, and I'll talk about it here in the slides, easy, cheap, reliable, meaningful, those kinds of things. And the scale, I think, cost me $22. It was next to nothing. They're probably cheaper than that, but there's a lot of them out there with a lot of different things. So today, what would I do? And we're talking about, I'm going to call it wellness metrics. And I identified 10 that I kind of have an interest in more than anything else. And we'll talk about why. But this show is live streaming on Amazon Fire, on Zizzle TV, on E360 TV, a couple different places on YouTube, on Android TV, Apple TV, social media. I have it 2 simulcasts on my Facebook channels, and more. There's a lot of follow-up on that. And all of these programs, everything I do on Talking Heads is for awareness and education. Okay. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, a publisher, a lot of different things, but I have 6 of my books there. I'm writing 2 more right now. I have another couple. I think I have a total of 8 that I've written. I have 2 more that I'm writing right now, but 6 of them that can easily be found on my website are the ones that are listed there. No matter what you can do, it talks about the subconscious mind. The Joy of Ageless Health talks about the cause of disease at the cellular level. Longevity Secrets for Healthy Aging. I'm actually updating that one now with a new book called Aging Sucks. And I'm talking about another dozen causes of aging and things we can do. Understanding the causes of Alzheimer's. I've listed probably about 40 plus blogs that I've written during COVID that I compiled and put into one book. Essential author's guide is how to write and publish a book for free, basically. And Failure is Not an Option is a book I wrote. And I based it on the Mercury 7 astronaut program. And so and I updated it with some current ways of doing things that weren't even in vogue back during Mercury. So it's a lot of good information there. Wellness metrics this and any of the other shows that I've done, live shows on USA, go to YouTube, go to USA Global TV, and go to streams, and you can catch any live show. If you want to look at the archives, you go to the same place, USA Global TV on YouTube, go to archives, and they have a search bar. And you put in Talking Heads, red.olaughlin, and see everything that I've done. And all of these programs, videos are also available on my website at red.olaughlin.com. Okay, so let's do a real quick disclaimer and synopsis of me. I'm a researcher. I have never been in the medical field, never been in the pharmaceutical field. They've appealed to me because my first degree was in chemistry. I loved it, all set to become a chemist until LBJ did away with the national defense exemption back during Vietnam. Now all of a sudden, I was getting a knock on the door that, I could either go to Vietnam as a grunt in the Army or Marine Corps, or my own choice. I ended up joining the Navy, and I flew also in Vietnam. I got 5 academic degrees total, 7 professional certifications. Retired Navy captain with 31 years in 61 countries. I look primarily for cause and effect. If you can treat a cause of a problem, you stand some chance of fixing something. But if all you're treating is symptoms, then the underlying cause is still there. You may not see it, but it can develop a life of its own. And when you finally do see something, you may not be pleased. Been married 56 years, soon coming up here to 57 in July. We have a couple kids, 3 grandkids, and our first great grandson is just a little over a year old. Best-selling author, 8 books I told you about earlier. I'm an independent publisher, published books for about 40 authors. Distinguished Toastmaster, a writer. I've written over 1,000 original content articles on LinkedIn, most of them dealing with some aspect of health or wellness. And as mentioned earlier, information provided on this program, Talking Heads, is for educational purposes only. I was honored on USA Global TV as a host for The Wise Ones, a show, one of the 3 shows I do on a weekly basis, that during 2024, I was the number 2 and number 6 most watched show. So I thank my audience very, very much for those ratings. Thank you. Wellness metrics. I think probably the best book I would have to help you on that one would be The Joy of Ageless Health, because it really does tell you from a cellular level in the body where disease starts. What can you do to short circuit that disease process? We want to be healthy. We want to be able to do things, have a good quality of life. Well, if we take our time and we look at what can cause disease and what can I do about it, I think this is a good source. So let's go out and get into our program today. Health and wellness. We hear that quite often. Health basically is the absence of disease or illness. We talked last week that illness is when you have something wrong with you, you know you have something wrong with you, you don't know what it is. A disease is when the doctor looks at you, diagnoses something based on your symptoms. Now your illness becomes a disease. It's just generic terms that are used in the industry. But the focus primarily on health is on medical conditions. They want to prevent the risks of things. So when I look at things, they're looking at my blood pressure, a blood test, other aspects of whatever they can measure, and that all deals with health. Now, the wellness part of it is much more inclusive. You're talking about your physical life, your mental, your emotional, your spiritual. There's a lot of aspects of wellness that are not included in health because it's looking at the bigger picture of how do we enjoy a healthy life, our lifestyle choices. What purpose are we here for? What's our meaning of life? We're starting to look at those kinds of things. So I'm only going to concentrate today on the physical. We could easily incorporate mental and emotional and stuff in there, but I think for most of us, if we're going to look at 10 things that might be important, let's just concentrate on 2 or 3 of those 10 and see if we can make a better life for ourselves. Okay. If I'm focusing on, whoops, what happened there? I'm getting the same thing. Okay. Health focuses on the freedom of disease and illness. Okay. So that's our focus of that one. Wellness, we're looking at the balanced life and the fulfillment of our happiness in that balanced life. So ask yourself, how do you know you're in good physical or mental health? Well, I think most of us kind of know. We don't have anything that's aching. We don't have anything that's bothering us. Our stress levels seem to be under control. I'm at a happy weight. I can do what I want to do. I'm not restricted by the ability to get in and out of anything, go somewhere, do things. So I think a lot of us have a pretty decent, good, healthy, and mentally healthy state, and we want to keep it. But if I know that there's some things that I can monitor, and if I start seeing a trend in the wrong direction, maybe that's a clue that I can improve my health by saying, hey, doc, this thing is going in this direction. I don't think that's right. What's your opinion? And then, so what options are out there? And there are many. And so many of them, I hope, are not inclusive of some kind of pill or surgery or other things, but those are the options you need to consider. So let's move on down the road. When I look at something, for me, I'm not looking at a medicine. I'm not looking at some kind of medicinal treatment, but I want something that's cheap, quick, something that's easily retrievable and meaningful. I look at something, okay, what does that mean to me? Okay, what's the last 4 or 5? Is the trend up or down? Am I in the safe range? Am I going toward an area where I really need to make decisions and make changes? Well, for most of us, we probably have a blood pressure machine at the house. I've had 3 in the last year because 2 of them went out. Believe it or not, I'm sitting there, my blood pressure is going like this. This is not right. And so I got another one. And it was okay. In fact, I actually took it right back the next day because it wasn't working right. So I got my money back, bought another one, and I took that one down to my cardiologist's office and compared my readings against the cardiologist readings. And okay, I'm happy with this. So my third one is working, and I'm getting my blood pressures. Everything's under control. A pulse oximeter, how much is my oxygen's in my body? That was super critical during COVID. Obviously, a smart scale is better. We weigh ourselves. Blood glucose monitor is something I never considered, but I'm reading a book now, and they talk about continuous glucose monitoring that I'm finding fascinating because it's not just for people who have diabetes or pre-diabetic. It actually tells you a lot of information that I'm thinking to myself, maybe I might want to get one, monitor myself for a couple of months, kind of see how things go when I fast, when I eat, what I eat, when I exercise, when I do things, when I'm sleeping, not sleeping. Anyway, I'm thinking it's probably a wise thing to get, a little expensive, over $100 in most cases. But I think the value in that is probably pretty good. Obviously, there's pregnancy tests, test kits for all sorts of diseases, COVID-19 being one of them. But I'm very sensitive to the cost, to the time to process the information. If I give a blood test, like I gave one yesterday for omega-3 at my dry eye doctor, in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I'll get something back. Well, I consider that to be almost excessive nowadays with everything. It seems like you put it in a machine, boom, it comes right out. But accessibility, how archival is it? Because if something is going on, I want some records that I can take to my doctor and say, hey doc, we need to talk about this, or I need to know more about what's going on here. And when I first saw my cardiologist, I gave him a copy of my EKGs from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, 40 years worth of my 4 decades worth of my naval career that I happen to have copies of that information. So he was able to take a look at me as a young naval officer all the way through 30 years of service. Body composition, that's the generic term that it's called, body composition. So if you're looking for the things that I'm talking about today, like weight or BMI or muscle rate or skeletal muscle, put in skeletal muscle and body composition, and you'll generally find a lot of the information that I'm talking about. I just did a quick search just for my own machines available, and they were running $99 to $199. They did 16 to 31 metrics, different measurements. The one I have, I think, does 12 or 13, and it cost me 20, 22 bucks. But the things that I'm looking for is I want to be able to have multiple users. I think one had 30 different users, or I don't have that large a crowd, but 2 or 3 people, they have their own phone, they have their own records, they stand on it, they get an update to their phone. That information is not being shared with me, it's staying with that individual. And like I say, it's transferred literally in seconds to the cell phone. But the metrics that are typically available in my particular machine is weight, BMI, body mass index. I'll talk about that one. I'm not real wild about body mass index. In fact, let me just talk about it now. It was originally set up by insurance companies to measure populations, not individuals. And as such, it's probably good for a population study. But if you just say, Tom has a body mass index of 27 and Harry has a body mass index of 27, one of them can be, 6'4", 245 pounds, and the other one can be 5'9", 345 pounds. Well, maybe not that extreme, but you can have the same body mass index number and yet have totally different physiques. It's not a great measurement. I usually discount it a lot. You can use it on the extremes. If your body mass index is 31, you're probably overweight if you're just a normal human being. But if you're an athlete or a runner or a gymnast or something, chances are body mass index is not a good measurement for you. Body fat, muscle rate, fat-free body weight, subcutaneous fat, visceral fat, big one for me. That's one that I'm really paying attention to. Body water, your hydration, skeletal muscle, bone mass, muscle mass. So we're going to talk about 10 of these things, not necessarily in any order of priority. They're just numbered. So, but I like it when I can turn on my phone, step on my scale barefoot, boom, a few seconds, everything's updated. The records are there. I can take a look from a chart. I see everything plotted. I can see the trend. And it also gives me a deal where I'm in the red, I'm in the green, I know whether I'm below normal, above normal, or normal. And that's a simple, easy look at it. Within a minute, 2 minutes max, I can go through everything and know pretty well where I'm at and what's going on. Simple, easy, cheap, fast, reliable. Last Christmas or the Christmas before last, we bought several, for friends and family. So it's a nice present to give away. And they do a really good job of monitoring and measuring so that you can improve the quality of your life. Okay. Let's just start now. Visceral fat. That's my number one bugaboo for 2025. This is the fat that's actually right against your liver and your spleen and your kidneys and everything. It's the fat that can become an issue. It's going to be there in low enough levels, not an issue. But it starts growing a mind of its own. Now you start having potential risks that you should not have. And you just can't look at somebody and just say, because they're fat, they have visceral fat. No, you can have visceral fat and be thin. You can have a lot of that big fat around your gut and not have much visceral fat. These are lifestyle issues that, anyway, we'll talk about that as I get down the slide a little bit. But visceral fat increases my health risk significantly. Cardiac more than anything else, but it also changes my insulin resistance, which can cause other problems down the road too. It's formed primarily dietary choices. What foods am I eating? And I'm eating too many of them. If I have a sedentary lifestyle, I'm not exercising, I'm not taking care of my stress. Genetics is a factor, but there's a thing called epigenetics, EPI genetics. That's essentially being able to turn a gene on or off, and it's the lifestyle choices you choose. So if you have a gene that can be detrimental to you in some way, shape, or form, you can turn it off. If it's a gene you need for something that is good for you, you can turn that gene on. A lot of things you can do with genetics, but they're there. But with regard to visceral fat, exercise, alcohol, nutrition, and again, stress management and sleep and a few other things are all going to have some level of impact on your visceral fat. So it's controllable, it's measurable, it's something you can look at almost on a daily basis. I'd say once a week, you get a fair indication if there's a change in what's going on. So you may be able to lose 10 pounds, you may not lose any visceral fat at all. Or you may be able to maintain your weight and actually lose visceral fat because you gave up alcohol, for instance. Lots of options we have. Number 2, bone mass, bone strength. How, we're looking at body composition, we're looking at the fats, the proteins, the minerals, and the muscles. So one part of this thing is the bone mass. And I'm looking at really measuring the mineralization in my bones. So bone mass is not the same thing as bone density. Bone density deals more with bone porosity and the ability of the bone to resorb and remodel. As we're kids, we grow, our bones get bigger. I remember my son having a lot of problems during that growth spurt that his joints were just, he'd wake up at night in pain because the bone is growing and there wasn't much you could do about it. But that growth affects us all in different ways, how fast we grow. And there's some people who grow significantly fast just in a couple of years. It's amazing what our bodies can do. But when I'm looking at bone strength, I'm looking at things that can help me down the road. I don't want to fall and break something. Now I have a real problem. Genetics an issue, yeah, but controllable. Nutrition, absolutely a factor. Lifestyle, a major factor. Age, we start having bone issues as we get older. Hormones, exercise. I had given up carbs back about the mid 90s, and for about 6 years I had lost 7 inches of my gut, 40, 45, 50 pounds. I had a wonderful life, enjoyed it. I was living in Europe the last couple of years, came back to the States, finally took a bone density test. I'd been a runner for decades. I'd weightlifting for, I can't remember how long. I thought I had pretty good bones. Well, I was osteopenia. It just shocked me. I had no idea why. Well, when I started doing research, literally years later, I understood what causes your bones to absorb calcium and what causes bones to give calcium up. And there's a lot of issues with that. We need the calcium. We also need magnesium to help get that calcium into our bloodstream. If it gets into the bloodstream, if I have enough vitamin D3, it's going to go into the bloodstream. If I don't have enough vitamin D3, it's going to pass right down into the toilet. But once it gets into my bloodstream, it's either going to go to my heart valves and arteries as plaque, or it's going to go to my bones if I have enough vitamin K2. But the other minerals that are needed there are boron and copper, selenium, sodium, potassium, phosphorus, and you will keep the calcium in your bones if your pH is above. It's actually in an alkaline condition. 7 is considered neutral. Anything below 7 is acidic. Anything above 7 is alkaline. Your blood needs an alkalinity of about 7.4 plus minus just a little bit. And so if you can keep your bloodstream at or above 7.4, calcium stays in your bones. But if you don't, calcium comes out of your bones to maintain the pH of your blood. Well, for 6 years, I had very acidic body because I was not eating any carbs, and because of that, I wasn't eating any greens. I wasn't getting the calcium, magnesium, the vitamin K2, all of the items that are needed in order to keep my bones healthy. And so I'm starting to look at potentially increasing plaque in my heart, my blood vessels, arteries. I'm looking at taking calcium out of my bones, making my bones more porous, more an obstacle, more an issue for later on in life. So A lot of issues there with knowing what your bone mass is, your bone strength. And that to me is a major plus for having a scale like that. Muscle mass. Okay, this is just a total, you take all your muscles out and weigh them. That's your total weight of your muscles. Now, we don't think much about that, but the thing is, our movement, our strength, our metabolic health, and our bone health in many, many regards, because you're looking at the ability of being able to move and adjust, balance, strength, flexibility. A lot of things are dependent upon our muscle mass. Something easy to look at, most of us are probably in that range of 60 to 90%, and that's normal. You get older, you lose a little bit. You start eating not as nutritious meals, muscle mass goes down. Genetics, again, another possibility. Exercise keeps our muscle on the positive end of things. Hormones become an issue again with if you start getting out of balance. But as we get older, we can expect our muscle mass to go down a bit. We don't want it to go down too far. Not exercising, inactivity. Sometimes you have an injury, you can't do anything for a while, and something just sits there and you don't do anything. You could have some medical issues. Malnutrition, again, you're not getting the nutrition you need. And this is where, you may have poor bone health, poor bone mass, poor bone porosity, but if you don't have the muscle strength to keep you upright, to maintain that balance, and you have a fall, now I end up with other issues that could have been prevented. Protein, something we don't think about very often. Why am I interested in the percent of my body that contains proteins? Because that is really and truly the function of a health and of our body, the muscles, everything that we typically use to maintain our mobility and enjoy the quality of our life relates to protein. They're the building blocks of our tissues and our cells. We lose a little bit as we get older. We start seeing issues with kidney and liver function sometimes because of a number of factors, genetics. But nutrition is probably one of the big ones. So age and nutrition. You keep the nutrition up, probably not going to have a problem. But diet is one that we have a tendency to change. And as such, if you're getting your protein from animals, they're generally considered complete. I try to mix my animals up. If I'm going to have, say, it's Friday during Lent, I want to have salmon. Okay, fine. I'll have salmon. Next day I'll have chicken or pork or beef. So I try to mix up my animal proteins. When you're a vegetarian and you're relying on your vegetables to get your protein, it's generally considered an incomplete protein. You're not getting all of the essential amino acids. Sometimes you're not even getting all of the vitamins you need because B12 is only available in the animal protein. So obviously now you have to rely on jars of pills and whatever else is out there. And B12 is one of those ones that's weird. It's a cobalamin. You take it in a pill form, it goes into the stomach acid, gets dissolved. You get no benefit out of it at all. You have to take it under the tongue in order to get in the bloodstream and bypass your stomach. But a lot of things are there. And the enzymes, amino acids and things are really and truly critical to get your tissues and your cells done right. The right amount of absorption of the kind of protein you have is dependent on, is it lamb, is it beef, is it salmon? The preparation method, am I grilling it, am I baking it, am I steaming it? They all change the absorption rate of the proteins. If I have fiber that I'm taking with my proteins, that gets me a better digestive system. Lots of things are functioning in there to get those proteins where they need to go, where they can do the job they need to do. Water, hydration, body water, easy component to measure. Many times we sit around, we don't realize it. I remember being in an exercise at March Air Force Base, Riverside, California, 105 daytime, 55 at night, dry, 10% humidity. And I left watch and went over to, they had 5,500 man tent city, and they had kind of a bar set up there not far from where my office tent was. And I go over there, and a couple of Cokes, 3 or 4 or 5 beers, a couple of burgers. I go back and I realize that It's been 4 or 5 hours. I didn't go to the bathroom once. That sometimes you don't realize when you're not drinking or when you're drinking and not going to the bathroom that body water is important, and it varies with age, gender, our body composition, the temperature it is outside, but the water also keeps our temperature of our bodies moderated a bit. It's there for the transport of nutrients in the body, waste removal. It's there to help facilitate the electrolyte distribution, the cellular health. Typically, most of the time, we're between 50 and 65%. But dehydration is so easy to achieve if you're in a low humidity environment, you're not doing very much, you're not sweating. Uh, Lots of things can happen. You get stressed out a little bit, you get depressed about things, you're just not thinking about you. But it's easy to fix. Drink. So make sure you have access to something. I start out the morning usually with eighth of a teaspoon of pink salt in water to get 70 different trace elements and other things that I need into my body first thing in the morning, trying to take care of that hydration issue as soon as I wake up. But a lot of things can affect me. So if I'm at altitude, I'm in a low humidity area, pay attention. It's insidious how quickly the body can lose stuff and you never know it. Subcutaneous fat. Okay, that's 90% of us. That's that you grab our stomach and jiggle it around. It's a fat right underneath our skin. What was it? Special K cereal used to have a commercial back in the 80s called "If you can pinch an inch." Okay, so if it's less than an inch, you're fine. If it's more than an inch, you need to start eating Special K. It's a quick measure. If you can reach down and grab your gut and there's more than an inch there, chances are you have a lot of subcutaneous fat. It's pretty obvious for most of us anyway, just looking in a mirror. But that fat's there for a reason. Our bodies are built a certain way. It's an energy reserve. You're not eating, your body's going to shift from glucose to ketosis, and we're going to start using fat cells for energy rather than blood sugar. And once you start doing that, now you're starting to burn that fat, and the size of your gut's going to start to shrink a little bit. So for most of us, having a little bit of fat on our bodies is good. It's a healthy thing. But having a lot, that can cause a lot of problems, because that fat actually starts to become, when you become obese, that almost becomes like another organ in the body. It starts creating its own chemicals, its own hormones. It becomes it becomes a friend you don't want to be carrying along with you. Lifestyle factors can help fix it, take it away, and they can help contribute to getting bigger. But age, our activity levels, our gender, and sometimes subcutaneous fat, it can be measured a lot of different ways and you get different numbers. So double check to make sure. Maybe you need 2 or 3 different measurements to confirm that, yeah, I really have 21% body fat, whatever it may happen to be. So again, just because you have a measure, you can tell a trend, but it may not necessarily be as accurate as it can be. Okay. Body fat. Okay, now we're talking about the total weight of fat in our body. So if you were able to carve off all the fat, put it on a scale, we're looking at the total weight. And for men, generally they're saying 10 to 25%, women 18 to 31. But that fat, again, is there for energy, with insulation, protection. You fall, you have some cushion. And hormone production can become a factor depending how much you have. Now, if you're an athlete or a fitness buff, you may be down below 10% or below for men and below 18 for women. But that's one of those things that you need to know. Your age has a factor on that. We already talked about BMI. I put the exclamation point there to remind me to cover BMI when we got here, but it's already been covered. But anytime we start having a lot of health risks, anytime a lot of body fat, we tend to increase our health risks. So a simple, easy way, if you don't have one of these scales, just take your waist to hip ratio, put a tape around your waist, put one around your hips, the maximum places in both areas. And if you're below a 1 to 1, below 1.0, probably okay. You're really ideal, they're saying, should be 0.9 for men, 0.8 for women. And it's interesting when you go back in time and you hit Marilyn Monroe with 36, 24, 36, I think was her measurements. So her waist was 24, her hips were 36. That's about 0.67, if I did that right in my head. But they're talking about the golden waist to hip ratio is 0.7. That's when we find our mates most attractive, when we're dating, when we're looking at people, when we assess beauty. So it's one of those things that we unconsciously assess by just looking at people. How big is their waist? How big is their hips? Basal metabolic rate, and that is the amount of energy our body needs to work when we're at rest. All I'm doing is laying in a bed. But there's a resting metabolic rate where now I got to put some clothes on, go to the bathroom. It's a little bit higher than the basal metabolic rate. But these things take into account our body mass, our age, our gender, height and weight, temperature. Sometimes our thyroid can be an issue in that. But for most of us, we're in that 1200 to 2200 range daily, and it's adaptive. You may be doing things to increase your basal metabolic rate so that you can burn more fat. But as the body starts, it slows down the BMR because it's adaptive to whatever you're doing. So you're expending calories to increase your BMR, but your body is lowering your BMR based on the weight you've lost. So it's kind of a funny thing, but it's certainly something to be paying attention to. Resistance strength training is something that increases our lean muscle mass. That lean muscle mass is part of what controls our BMR, basal metabolic rate. And try and wrap things up here. Body age is one thing they give you. It's literally based on our physical condition, health, and it gives you a chronological age. You'd like to have that chronological age be less than what your real age is, but it's looking at, in the body composition scale, your mass of your muscles, your fat, and other readings are all plugged in. You can do it mechanically. There's formulas for that, but again, it's genetics and lifestyle. Sometimes you have a disease, diabetes, other things that can affect age calculations. You can calculate your heart age. I did that for mine. I'm about 3 years younger for my heart than I am for my body. My fitness age, my biological age, a lot of issues with lifestyle choices. But something that's actually kind of super critical that we really don't talk about much is relationships. Who's in my social circle? How active am I? Because that also deals with my mental health and my emotional health. A lot of issues there around our body age. We measure a number, it gives us a number, but if our number is 5 years older than what we really are, maybe I need to pay attention to something. Last of the 10, muscle rate. This is our muscle mass percentage. That's the proportion of our body, how much is actually made up of the skeletal muscles. And this is a super good indicator of health because it really deals with your metabolism and your risk of disease. It's based on genetics and physical fitness and gender and age, but it's also a factor of how much protein you're taking in, because now your protein is the thing that's feeding your muscles and your cells. How much resistance and strength do I have, resistance training in my exercise? Because that's what's building muscle. So my muscle is needed to maintain a lot of different things, but I need to maintain that with some level of strength and resistance training. And getting here toward the end. So when it comes down to it, what would I do? What's really important? Well, to me, hydration. Now, I've got to maintain good body water. That is mandatory. Muscle mass, again, for the reasons I talked about earlier. Bone density, falls become a big issue. Visceral fat is something I'm working not religiously on, but I'm really paying attention to it for this year. Body fat, your waist to hip ratio. Blood pressure, we didn't really talk about that today. It's a silent killer. Vitamin D3, something that I get a blood test every year for. And it's the one hormone the body makes, I call it a hormone, that we do everything in our power to not make it. We wear hats, we wear clothes, we wear sunblock, we avoid the sun. But it's the one thing our body needs. C-reactive protein, annual physicals, relationships, exercise. All of these things help us have a better, healthier life that we can enjoy with family and friends. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap up today's show, and I look forward to seeing you all on Talking Heads next week. Take care. Bye, y'all.
Meet Red O'Laughlin, TV show host, presenter, and author.
Howdy all, Red O'Laughlin here. I'm a TV host on the USA Global TV and Radio Network.
Red has 3 weekly shows every Thursday.
I've been a TV host now with USA Global probably maybe just a little over 3 years. Probably, I know for sure, 250, 300 shows.
Join Red on the Corner Bookstore.
The Corner Bookstore is one where we talk to authors, publicists, publishers, editors, cover designers, anybody associated with the writing and authoring book production business. You have somebody in that area, I can help you with regard to getting your book done, getting it published, working with you on a cover. A lot of things I can help people with, and I have probably maybe published over 40 books for people so far.
Join Red on The Wise Ones.
On the Wise Ones, I'm looking for entrepreneurs, business owners, people who have wisdom, lessons learned over time that they can share with others. So please go to usaglobaltv.com, sign up and join me there.
Book your session on usaglobaltv.com. Join Red on Talking Heads.
On Talking Heads, I take my experience. I fell in love with chemistry many years ago, got a degree in it, got an invitation to Vietnam, never practiced chemistry per se, but I did get a chance when my wife was going through chemo to get back into the chemical end of things. I started looking for cause and effect relationships. I had been working at a company doing cause and effect analysis on failures in the field on various products that we made. So I said, why not look at the cellular structure in the body? The chemicals are chemicals. They do certain things. So I take my knowledge of chemistry and research. I write about it. I speak about it. I have over 1,000 original content articles on LinkedIn, most of them dealing with some aspect of health or wellness. I speak on that topic quite often, and the Talking Head show is one that I concentrate my knowledge of health and wellness on in order to help people.
Red is a distinguished Toastmaster.
As a distinguished Toastmaster, I help people get their speeches developed. The presentation is something that I critique all the time with Toastmasters. It's one of those skills that I have. I can easily help you on that one. So from the position of writing, publishing, book coach, speaking, and being a keynote speaker at an event or virtually, depending on how things work out. But those are the things that I can help people with, and I have 3 shows every week here on the USA Global TV and Network, and please join me when you can. Appreciate it. Bye now.
Here are some of the books that Red has written and published. Contact Red at red.olaughlin.com.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USAGlobalTV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting. We're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dies. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.